Okay, I think maybe we can get the ball on the road here. It's not an expression, but you know what I mean. Um, okay, just a housekeeping thing is so I don't know if people saw, but we posted the updated GitHub um, in the dev feed chat, so you can take a look at that. I just wanted to call out Tepid Cola. I know that he was mentioning that should we put it to a DAO vote, and I was wondering, Cody, could you just say a couple words about any safety or security concerns that might be um, quelled by your vast knowledge of the situation?
Yeah, sure. Um, so repo had been around for a little while, and a lot of history there. So it's hard to say with 100% certainty that we hadn't checked in a secret key somewhere along the way, maybe even before all of us were here. And finding that with 100% assurance is difficult. So when we pushed it out, we actually we got rid of all the history, which kind of took care of that problem. And then we ran a couple security leak, sensitive info scanners on it, just to do a final review at the current snapshot. All that came back clean, nothing unexpected. So from a security perspective, we should be good to go.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think that it's important for us to have, that code out there. It's pretty standard across the DeFi space. I understand, myself included, coming from a non-technical background, that you just perhaps assume that there might be some risks at play. But I think uh, Cody, with your assurance, I think that we feel pretty 100% confident that there's no real risk here.
We do.
Okay, cool. So the main goal of this call is to sort of talk through the roadmap that we released, which I'm actually going to redrop the graphic into the state of the reactor chat, just so everybody has it handy. Um, I know we had some questions that were posted in the pilot notion prior to us delaying the last state of the reactor. Some of those questions aren't really related to the things that we want to talk about today. Moving forward, we're going to try to structure these community calls so that we have different sections and enough time to specifically address some of those questions. I think we might get to one of them today, but the priority today is to just try to talk everyone through the roadmap pieces. And so with that, I will kick it to Carson, the liquidity wizard himself, and we can start talking through some of these things.
Sounds good. So one thing, I don't remember what the context was that when you brought up sort of Dalbot a little bit ago. One thing I should just note before we even dig into the roadmap is everyone's going to see a lot more activity in DAO governance in general. So these big pieces of the roadmap we're planning to put up to DAO vote. So be looking for a lot more activity on Snapshot in the coming weeks here. So for those of you either that saw I think Friday when I think last Friday was when we dropped it into Discord, and then we tweeted on Monday. And I think Connor, or what did you just throw it into? What channel do we have that in?
We have a specific chat for the state of the reactor. It's called the state of the reactor chat. It's under the Tokemak
Okay,
section. Yeah.
perfect. So if you check out that channel, you can see what we're kind of walking you through right now. But at a high level, we dropped a roadmap that shows all of the stuff kind of as we came out of this planning and building mode. And there's obviously a lot more still to build here, but planning and building mode going into what we're calling delivery season here. Starting in October, there's going to be a lot of stuff rolling out for Tokemak October, November, December, so sort of rest of this year, and then going into the beginning of next year, 2023. Those releases can broadly be rolled up into kind of five big chunks. So the first thing that'll be coming this month will be updated pair reactors. That's the first thing here. We're going to talk through all these, but just to kind of set up for everyone, that's the first update here. Then coming in Planned for November will be accTOKE launch, as well as an update to emissions to make them much more sustainable. And then going into December, we are planning, but this is definitely going to be a DAO vote question, to enable liquidity direction on top of accTOKE locking. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then going into 2023, we'll be doing a full V2 launch, which is going to update and improve a lot of different features for Tokemak so that it can really realize its true potential. So what we want to do now, as En said, is kind of dig through these pieces just to give everyone a little bit more insight into each of these beyond just what we dropped with the roadmap. So I think we'll kick it over. Could kick it over to Bruno. I think you're taking the first one.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit through the updated pair reactors. So this might be at first glance look like a kind of a smaller update, because there's nothing like much changing in the mechanics at first glance. So as some of the OGs might remember, we had this concept of Genesis pools, right? This was just after launch where people had the opportunity to stake ETH and USDC, right? So we're somewhat going to back to this kind of design. So we're redesigning the pair reactors to be, I don't know if we are going to name it that way. I'm just going to call them Genesis pools for now, which also implies a small UI update, obviously. What this will lead to is it's going to be, on one hand, it's going to be a little bit of a simplified LP experience, since it's just going to be a very simple, straightforward staking pool for ETH, USDC, and all these pair assets that we're supporting. But more importantly, it's a more efficient, it's going to be way more efficient from the protocol perspective to manage the LP rewards, right? More targeted towards more efficient use by the protocol, which then also rolls back into a potential for higher rewards for those participants. This will also mean, just as a preemptive heads up, that of course there is no more LD voting on these reactors or pools, but there will be ample kind of heads up for LDs to move their votes to other reactors, or then, as we'll dive into this, the upcoming accTOKE staking. Yep, and I think that should give the overall view of the updated pair reactors.
Yeah, just one note on that. No more LD voting. I think we'll probably put out an announcement on Monday for that, and there'll probably be a 2-cycle period before that goes into action. So just a heads up for that.
Yep, and that's only no LD voting on the pair reactor side. So LD voting continues on the main reactors, the token reactors.
Yep, absolutely correct.
So, okay, great. I think next we can dig into sort of the numbers 2, 3, and 4 on the roadmap, which all kind of flow together: the accTOKE launch, the emissions update, and the potential ability to stack liquidity directing on top of accTOKE. So I think Sharp and Bruno, you guys are going to maybe discuss all those together.
Yeah, I can give just a very quick rough outline of it, and then Sharp, you could just hop in with a little bit more detail if you want. So initially, just as a concept, you can think of it as a very straightforward kind of additional option to stake your token, right? And those rewards that are accumulated for the accTOKE will be paid out in wrapped ETH. And Cody, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there will be also an auto unwrapped, right, for those rewards for those who wish. But that's, I'm not.
Yep. Planning on putting something for that in the UI.
Yep. So technically speaking, it's wrapped ETH on the protocol, but there will be the ability to auto unwrap this when claiming rewards. Initially, the lockup periods, we're going to have them relatively short, 2 to 8 weeks, I think is what we landed on currently. So these will be very, so to speak, manageable for people that lock up. Reason for that being is we are going to, in the future, of course, offer longer lockup periods. The reason for that being is the Toke v2, so like the Tokemak v2 that Carsten's going to talk about later. So we definitely didn't want to have people locked into the system beyond kind of the horizon of a basically complete system overhaul, right? So that people have the opportunity to make a decision at that later point to like stay inside this accTOKE or remove, right? Yeah, Sharp, do you have any additional?
Yeah, a lot to add here. So accTOKE, it's an improvement to Toke's tokenomics. And what we really want to acknowledge are two user groups that exist within the system. So one of the user groups, it's mainly dominated by DAOs, and they have vested interests in terms of directing the underlying liquidity. And the second user group, it's mostly interested in getting the upside of Tokemak's POA. So what accTOKE allows us to do is just to harness that power of the POA deployments, which is just extrinsic revenue. This is totally non-inflationary, and the protocol will start to distribute those with rewards to accTOKE holders. Now, this introduces also interesting consequences. Like, for example, the supply and demand of Toke itself. It will suffer a shift with this. And without getting into too much detail, if you think about upside or downside in terms of PA, this will have consequences in terms of the WETH yield that is distributed and that is highly desirable to the protocol. Now, additionally, this also allows us to have simplicity, and the simplicity to the overall system creates a clear value proposition. Even if you do not have any type of vested interest in the direction of the underlying liquidity, you can opt to lock your tokens, and by locking those tokens, you receive the upside of the POA in WETH. I'm not sure if we have mentioned this, but there will be caps to the ACC lock, and the whole goal with this is to guarantee a smooth transition from the regular system to the ACC locking system, just to make sure that voting is still fully stabilized. And the way that we personally view this system, it's into a dual type of mechanic where you have the regular side for people that are interested in directing liquidity and the other side to get the upside of the POA. Obviously, as the APRs for WETH and Toke on both sides change, there will be demand for the regular side, which is the current system, and the accTOKE side. But ultimately, this is the great improvement to the overall tokenomics of Toke. It creates a, I'm not going to say productive asset, but it creates a lot of upside for users. Now, in terms of the accrual of rewards, so LP deployments will still accrue to the treasury, and POA deployments will accrue to ACC. So Tokemak will keep on building up a larger treasury, and at the same time, accTOKE holders will still benefit from this POA that will keep on growing into the protocol itself.
And just one thing I wanted to add here is that also on the other side, if you look at the LD side, right, by separating these two groups more directly, you will have more like kind of benefit to the LDs that are voting on the system by increasing their kind of voting power, right, relative to others in the system.
Yeah, and ultimately, this also allows us to reduce LD rewards, because as users opt for ACC, this creates new dynamics within the system, and that's very desirable for ourselves. And something that I like to focus on, it's extrinsic rewards entering ACC. So all non-inflationary and a great improvement to the tokenomics associated with Toke, because it breaks reflexivity.
Excellent. Yeah, introduces some nice convexity in terms of sort of this reward mechanic for locking the utility token. Super interesting. My audio cut out for a minute, but did you two hit it all on the sort of possibility of of stacking LDing to ACC
Oh, yeah.
Toke? I was out for a second.
That's the second point. So we decided to, at this first stage, not have LD voting enabled, because this just separates these two different groups and it concentrates the upside into what we call the agnostic ACC Toke holders. So if you don't have an underlying interest, you can just opt for the system. And given that the ones that have vested interests over direction of liquidity will remain on the previous system, this concentrates the WETH rewards that are distributed directly to ACC. So then this will be put out to a community vote, and the community will decide if they want to add more utility in terms of voting to ACC, or if they prefer to have a concentrated upside in WETH from Tokemak's POA. And we believe that this should be a community decision and not a team decision.
Awesome. Yep. Good overview. Okay, great. So I think then the last main piece here we want to cover on the roadmap is the V2 launch. So obviously this is the furthest one out. So we'll keep it a little bit high level here, but this is going to be a pretty large update and overhaul to a lot of the system, especially the UI and UX side of things. And really what we're going to be rolling out here is a liquidity bandwidth platform, basically, that serves not only all DeFi users like Tokemak does today, but also projects in a self-serve manner. I'll get to that in a second, and market makers themselves, which will give new demand in general for the Tokemak platform, as well as the Toke token. So when I talk about projects being sort of self-serve here, this is going to enable people to configure specific deployments. So pick token A, pick token B, and what I call sort of a pull model versus the push model today will be like, hey, we want to see a deployment here with token A, token B on SushiSwap or on Curve or on Uniswap, whatever. And then those deployments, via pulling in the right participants as a response to those requests for deployments, will actually sort of configure and deploy liquidity, and in a much more, I'll call it, functional and useful manner for really all participants involved. Really, this is going to be sort of the solution to move us beyond the initial core event structure for determining sort of who gets liquidity. With Core 3, for example, we've kind of we did the vote, then the market fell off, and we've reached out and we can continue to talk with all of the different projects from Core 3, but with the market sort of crashing, the appetite for token projects to do partnerships where they need to allocate some of their tokens has decreased pretty substantially. And so this V2 will really get us away from that model, which with Core 3 has been a challenge to get the projects to come along and sort of ignite the reactors. So we're really excited that this will kind of fully open, we used to call this kind of permissionless reactor spin up for some of you that have been around for a long time. And in this new model, Tokemak will, much like sort of how a venue like a Uniswap or SushiSwap works for all tokens, in this V2 model, Tokemak should be able to work for all of these different tokens without sort of being beholden to what passes any sort of event. So very excited for what this will roll out. And again, this really sort of moves into the liquidity bandwidth move, where sort of the first phase, I'll say, of Tokemak was much more along the lines of a decentralized market maker. And the next phase will be sort of, I think, really realizing what we've been saying from the beginning. How do you actually make this liquidity bandwidth that can power not only DeFi, but Web3? So a lot more we're going to be sharing about that. But I'm very excited for what's going to be coming in early 2023 on the V2 side of things. So with that, I think I can throw it back to End here, since we just ran through the.
Yeah, I think there was one point that I just wanted to get into a little more. This was like the sustainable emissions update, which is point 3 on the roadmap, which we kind of addressed, but like I just wanted to go into a little more detail into this. So what this entails is we had in the current model, the balancing did basically not take into account the kind of the efficiency of the underlying deployments, right? So we are currently like working like very close to like finishing up an overhaul of the reward system. So this will focus more on the efficient deployment of the liquidity based on the reactor performance, right, of the underlying reactor. It will maintain the balancing via the liquidity directors to like obviously like kind of maintain their power over the system. But it also like be a more transparent way to like measure the performance of the reactor and the then allocated rewards. And in concert with ACC, this will allow to like further expand the reach of the emissions, right? And increase the influence of the active, like the more active reactor liquidity directors and that they have over the system. Yeah, this was the kind of this little points that I wanted to add here.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruno. And with that, I wanted to just comment on the last part of what Carson was saying. I'm going to be shutting off the Core 3 Discord channel. I know it's become kind of a meme channel for people asking when. So I will be turning that off. But there was one question that was written prior to us delaying this, which I think kind of fits in to the conversation today, which I think Sharp can elaborate on. But the question was discuss curve and convex dependence for revenue. A lot of Tokemak's revenue comes from these projects. Should we expect the same thing going forward? And Sharp, do you want to take that?
So this is mostly about the way that we display the weekly claims of rewards. And the truth is that the pool to deployments actually revenue that is, I'm not sure about the last cycle, but superior to what we expect from curve and convex. It's just a matter of us not realizing those fees each single cycle.
Yeah, awesome.
And it would actually be good to have the input from the community, because Sam has mentioned this before. Like, we can report the weekly rewards that are extracted from these pool to deployments. It is a bit misleading because we won't be collecting them on a cycle per cycle basis. So that's the only reason why they are not included in the rewards that are mentioned in the dev field. That's just a fraction of the overall.
Cool, thanks. Ghost had a quick question about the community vote regarding whether or not accTOKE can liquidity direct as well. Will there be a review approval process? And I think it's safe to say yes. I don't exactly know what the exact methodology that we'll have for that, but I think it's safe to say we'll definitely have a review and approval process before the formalized vote. Yeah, so that's kind of the update. Is there anything else anybody wanted to say? I know Craig just got back from DevCon. Craig, was there anything you wanted to quickly mention about your experience there? We can't hear you, Craig.
Oh, we might not have Craig. So I went off mute. If you can hear us, Craig, right now we can't hear you for some reason.
All right, well, Craig is having technical difficulties.
Just chime in if you regain it here as we're wrapping stuff up. But
well, he's down there, and he's spreading the gospel. And he's not been robbed yet, so you guys can all breathe a sigh of relief.
And I think when we were catching up a little while ago, he said that it was in general a really good event. So if he chimes back in, great. Otherwise, anyone else?
Loblolly had a decent question about the phase 1 of the roadmap. He asked, will some of the current pair reactors be pruned when moving to the Genesis pool model? I don't know, Bruno or Manuel, you want to talk about that?
There's currently no direct plans to prune any as of now. There's obviously some that are like kind of minimally small, right? That we could definitely I mean, this would ultimately, I think, also fall into the purview of like a governance question, right? But at this point in time, there's no direct plan on our end.
Cool. All right. Well, we have 2 minutes, but maybe we can wrap it up unless. Oh, maybe we heard from Craig for a second there.
Oh, he's back on stage. We'll see if we can.
Hey,
Hey, we got
can
you.
you hear me? All right.
Yes.
There may be some delay, so I apologize for that. It's great to be here now. One thing before we get into DevCon, all of these updates that everybody just walked through, I'm really excited about. There are a lot of big pieces that we're putting into place that continue to evolve Tokemak to be a better, more efficient, more scalable system. All of this leading towards V2. So awesome stuff. Keep the good questions coming. On DevCon, yeah. So just returned this morning off of a brutal 2-leg red eye, and I'm a little bleary-eyed, but very much worth the trip. DevCon, if any of you have ever been, you probably feel the same. It's a unique event. It's a large, high production value event that is unique in that it's sponsored and funded by not primarily commercial sponsors, and that changes the feel of the event, from the talk that happen to the conversations that happen to the people that attend, and I think just generally the conversations that it sparks over the course of the week. It's a real builders conference, and I think coming out of this week, we all have a lot to be optimistic about in this space. There are people building key pieces of infrastructure in every nook and cranny of this ecosystem, and it's just tremendously kind of invigorating to be able to see all of that firsthand. From Tokemak's perspective, it's fun to be able to get together with people we've been talking with for a long time, some as early as the old Fractal Wealth days, and meet people in person that we already have good relationships with, meet people that we've been talking to more recently that we are exploring different kinds of collaborations with and ways that we can support each other. Lots of good conversations with staked ETH protocols, with protocols that can help put our POA to work in various ways outside of normal liquidity deployments. Insurance providers, security and kind of audit protocols, different places that we can put our assets, our volatile assets into the market productively, and protocols that are working on risk management solutions that may ultimately build on top of exposure that Tokemak has into its various primary deployments for volatile assets. So a lot of good, productive conversations. We'll all hopefully see some of this come to fruition in the near, medium, long term. All of it super, I think, positive for the space, positive for Tokemak, and we'll keep you posted as all those things continue to evolve.
Awesome. That's a very optimistic way to end this call. I think we all need a little optimism in our lives right now, particularly me, the doomer of the crew. Okay, great. Well, don't FUD the Discord when I close the Core 3 chat, please. But I love all of you. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to the team for coming up here. And
most important, shout out to Tokemak in the audience. Happy birthday. Some on the team know her, so a lot in the audience probably don't, but happy birthday from all the pilots.
Happy birthday, Tokemak.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And
thanks, everyone.
Thanks on the horizon. Later, guys.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Have a good one.
Nice. Peace.